Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special agriculture conversation we are having here on the Langcast Ag podcast in partnership with the Western Ag Network. We're going to be focused on beef promotion today and some of the initiatives that Montana ranchers are currently pursuing to help expand beef promotion here in Montana and increasing funding for that beef promotion that will be utilized to promote Montana beef here in Montana, across the nation and the world. And that beef promotion funding would stay right here in the state of Montana. We're going to be talking about the new Montana Beef Enhancement Program here today. We have guests joining us, Jim Steinbeisser from Sydney and Jimmy Tabor from the town of Shawmut. Gentlemen, how's your afternoon going here today?
Well, if the wind would quit blowing, we'd be all right up here.
Well, I made it out of Kansas City through 4 lanes of traffic without any crashes. So far, so good.
Well, of course, Jim Steinbeiser is making his way home from an event he was at in Kansas City. And Jimmy and I are holding the fort down here in Montana. And gentlemen, as I mentioned there at the Montana Farm Bureau, there was a new resolution put forward called the Montana Beef Enhancement Program. And Jimmy, I know you were on the ground talking about this. And I guess first off, this program, I guess, is designed to provide Montana cattle producers with more opportunities to enhance profit opportunities by establishing a Montana Beef Enhancement Program. Jimmy, to put this shortly, this is promotion. This is promotion dollars. Am I correct? Talk us through this.
Yeah, this lane actually is going to be a separate checkoff. It'll be a Montana state checkoff of $1 that will mirror the national checkoff. And the resolution did pass through the Farm Bureau Convention. And I think it's just an easy way that as an industry, we can help ourselves out. That extra dollar in the state can really do a lot of benefit that the national checkoff doesn't have the capability of doing.
No, I guess when someone hears this, gentlemen, the Montana Beef Enhancement Program and checkoff, producers already pay $1 checkoff here in the state of Montana to promote beef. I guess what will this additional dollar do, and where does that full dollar go? I guess, Jim, do you want to talk about that or address it, or do you want Jimmy to do that?
So I can take a stab at it, Lane. This has been a concept that's been talked about for several years, and a group of us just thought, if not now, when? So we're just taking a stab at it, and we got some momentum behind us. We got a great working group that Jimmy is chairing, and pretty well-rounded group of people on there, and so this is going to have a lot more latitude than our national checkoff that we're all very familiar with. We'll be able to promote Montana beef. The current checkoff can promote beef. So we can be very specific in what we're promoting. We can promote it in state. We can go to New York if we want to promote Montana beef in New York, or wherever else it makes sense. Japan, Korea, China. And also this will have the ability to fund some production research if we feel it makes sense to do so. So those are two elements that are a little different than the checkoff that we're used to. One other element too that the current checkoff has to be very careful how they argue against things like fake meat or cultured meats, and this one won't have those limitations. We can get downright aggressive if we feel it makes sense. So I like the latitude in what this checkoff will look like.
And I guess one thing that I'm curious about, does this $1, it stays in Montana? Are we dividing that 50 cents up and sending another 50 cents to the national level? Or, gentlemen, does this whole dollar stay in Montana for just Montana promotion, as you mentioned, Jim?
The whole dollar can stay in the state, but it'll still be at the discretion of the Montana Beef Council. So if they decide that they'd like to send, 10 cents of it or 20 cents, they'll be able to do that. But the design of it is to be able to keep and use the whole dollar here in the state of Montana.
And I guess with that, when we look at the collection of it, is that going to be similar with how that the checkoff funds are currently collected at the livestock markets?
Yeah, so they'll write one check just like they do now. Instead of $1, it'll be $2.
Now, I guess with that, what has the feeling been like in the countryside? Obviously, people may be a little concerned about that added dollar. What are some of the projections on what this can do to promote more Montana beef to more consumers and help drive demand for the Montana product itself?
Well, we really haven't put any projections on anything. It's just we're trying to establish that this is more going towards the sale of Montana beef, and along with just helping producers out. One idea that we've kind of been talking about and stuff is it gives us the capability. Say the council were to decide to put $40,000 towards a project, and Montana State University would match that and do some research. That's something that the Montana producer can wrap his hands around it and get the good out of it, whereas something like that you can't do on the national level.
Now, Jimmy, I know you are a past chair of the Montana Beef Council, and as a producer yourself, you understand the workings of it, how the funding is allocated. Can you walk us through the transparency of the Montana Beef Checkoff and how that money is allocated, how it's utilized, and where it is not utilized?
Yeah, definitely. All that money is the Department of Livestock collects it. It is then forwarded. We have a bookkeeper, so that's all she does. It comes down. Then the 50 cents is taken out and is passed on to the national. With that other 50 cents, the Beef Council board, who's made up of basically every segment of Montana agriculture in the cattle industry, they sit down and are presented with ARs that they walk through, decide where the biggest bang for that dollar can be. And, and that's one thing people forget is that the program takes place and then it's paid for. So they're just not throwing dollars around and, did that work or did that not work? And then after that, there's, they go through and evaluate it and see if it'd be a good thing to do the next year or not. So there's a lot of steps and a lot of transparency and a lot of input on where all that goes.
Now, as we look at what this enhancement program would do, obviously the Montana Farm Bureau delegation, their voting delegates have approved this. What are the next steps with other agriculture organizations? Jim, I know the Montana Stock Growers Convention is coming up. Will this be in front of the rancher delegates in Billings coming up in December?
It will. It actually came up before our delegates in summer meeting in Sydney, and that passed as interim policy. But any policy that's passed in the summer meeting needs to go to the convention, and so it'll be heard there again to make it actually official policy for the books.
Now, gentlemen, just this week, if you were tuned into our Western Ag Network programming, you probably heard that the Food and Drug Administration has officially given the thumbs up to cell-based cultured meats, starting with a chicken-based cell-cultured product created in a laboratory. Now, I know that checkoff funds can't lobby against other things or proteins, but they can sure educate consumers about the options, about the nutrition, about the sustainability of products like beef. Why is it more important now than ever to continue to drive the message of this safe, nutritious product that families raise out in the countryside that is truly one ingredient that consumers around the nation and the world enjoy, that being beef? Why do we continue to have to go up and educate during times like these fake meat products?
Well, I think that's one thing that the checkoff does. It has to do, and it does all the time. Is there's never no end to educating the consumer, and just because you educate them once doesn't mean you got to keep reminding them. And just as inflation and everything going on, and I know that beef is expensive at the store at their level when they buy it. We still have to show them that, hey, what you're buying is the best product in the world, and you can't go wrong with it. And we're going to help you, teach you how to cut it, how to cook it, and experience the best thing out there.
Lane, I might add too that since the big discussion the last few years with greenhouse gases and climate change, um, those companies that market fake meat and are developing culture meats, they're using that as a leverage to, hey, take a look at our product and this is better for the environment, et cetera, et cetera. We need to educate our consumer that cattle are definitely better for the environment than these other products. For one thing, these open spaces and big open pastures are far better than tearing up more grass to farm to raise peas or whatever we need for these fake meat products. Nothing against farmers. I'm one myself, but we just need the truth out there, and this can help with that.
So, guys, when we look at this assessment in particular, people may be saying, "Oh, it's a tough time for producers right now. Why do I want to pay another dollar?" How can I guess how is this? If folks don't want to participate, can they ask for a refund of that checkoff fee?
There will be that provision in there, and I guess just to back up, this program that was presented at Farm Bureau and Stock Growers, this is going to go through a legislative process, then it's going to go through the referendum process, and it's going to give every producer in the state of Montana to look the whole thing over completely and decide on their own if it's something that they'd like to support. And once it goes through that legislative process, it's going to outline exactly what it can do for the producer, and so we hope that the producer looks at it good and hard and really sees the good of the program.
Well, yeah, let's just talk about that. The Farm Bureau has approved it. The stock growers will vote on it during their convention in December. Then the legislature, they're the ones that have to truly pass it during the legislative session. Then that's mailed out to producers. I guess, how do you identify, which producers get it based on if they paid the checkoff or per capita fees? I guess, how does that work?
We're still working on those particulars, Lane, but what we would like to have happen is you would go to your local county extension office and vote there. So we need the legislature just to um, make law to be able to put this in place for a vote of the producers. So the producers are going to decide if they want this or not.
And I think that's important for you all to share too. It's not just Jim and Jimmy going to put this into play, even though you're both supporters of it and you're trying to educate the public and ranchers about it. This would be decided upon by the ranchers in the state of Montana for this additional dollar.
For sure. Yep.
I might add too, Lane, that and Jimmy, you've been there more recently. I also was on the beef council, but I know when I was there was a lot of projects that we didn't fund, either because we didn't have the money to do it or they didn't quite fit the parameters of what the national checkoff will fund. So there's going to be a lot of projects ready-made for some additional funding, so we won't have to search very hard for ways to spend that money. It's needed. If we as producers can invest in our future and try to give ourselves a leg up, how can we expect other entities like the government to help us as well. So, I think we have a responsibility as an industry to invest in ourselves. I think it'll pay off. I'm really looking forward to seeing this thing pass and what it's going to be able to do.
Now, all three of us pay into the checkoff every single year every single time we market cattle. And I guess, what would your take be on if there was not the ability to have beef promotion through the checkoff? Where would cattle producers stand in terms of having that loss of not being able to market to the millions and millions of consumers, not only in Montana but nationwide, about the beef protein that we produce?
I totally believe we lose a huge market share just to chicken. These people that are going to the grocery store and they're seeing that, the cost of the meat, but once they eat that meat or serve it to their family, they know they've got an excellent product. And we're out there every day. The checkoff is out there every day working on behalf of producers. And without it, I don't even know where we'd be. It wouldn't be a good situation. I know that.
Lane, I just heard Greg Dowd, who's recently was our ag trade ambassador for the Trump administration. And he talked a lot about, China and a lot of other countries where we have made huge inroads in our trade, especially with beef. And I'll tell you, our export markets it's a huge deal in the value of our animals right now. And we want to hold that and we want to grow that. So I envision some of this money working for us on the international level as well. It is key to our profitability.
Now, Jimmy, I know you've been probably asked in your previous role on the Beef Council and as a producer about how checkoff funds are utilized. I know there's always talk that checkoff funds are used for lobbying efforts, but can you clear the air on that for those that are listening and watching this interview today on how, especially the funding is utilized on a state and national level?
Yeah, most definitely. No checkoff money is used for lobbying. It's against the act and order. There's a oversight from the USDA to make sure that everything you can trace your money down. And if like we always say, if you're worried about it, jump on board. You can become a federation director and get involved. When you start looking on the national basis, every one of the people that sit there and go through that money, every one of them's a producer. And so, but very transparent, and the money could easily be traced to show where it's going.
Now, looking ahead, we're just a few weeks left here in 2022, and that Montana legislative session will be getting underway during the month of January. And so for folks, Jim, that are going to be attending the Montana Stock Growers Convention, walk us through how the policy sessions work with all the policy that is brought forward, including the Montana Beef Enhancement Program, and then how that is then turned into the advocacy in Montana at the Montana State Capitol during the legislative session to push forward the program itself.
So our policies are brought forward, our resolutions, you might say, are brought forward on committee levels. So that'll pass or fail at the committee level, and all policy that goes through the committee will then go to second reading, where it's heard by everybody, and then on to third reading. And once it passes there, it is officially stock grower policy.
And once, say, this beef enhancement program does move forward and is passed by the stock growers delegates, how then, I guess, can you explain both how the Montana Farm Bureau's endorsement of it and possibly the stock growers in a few weeks, how does that get taken to the Capitol then and be put as a priority? How does that work for our viewers and audience?
Okay, so we'll find a sponsor for the bill. We've already been visiting with some legislators, and we're kind of waiting to see what the leadership's going to look like and who's going to be chairing various committees. So when that's known, we should know that by, it probably is known today, I just haven't heard. Then we'll move forward with a sponsor, and then it'll just go work through the process.
And Lane, if I can just throw it out too, that it's just not Stock Growers and Farm Bureau working on this committee. We've reached out to other organizations within the state. There is some sitting on the committee along with Jim and I. So this is this is coming from the grassroots of the livestock industry, the way we're looking at it.
Now, if you were down at the local bar or the Stockyards Cafe and someone was just so uncertain about, the what that extra dollar will do for them, I guess I know that's what we've been talking about during this whole conversation. But I guess what is that boots on the ground conversation you have with producers about the checkoff all the time, but in particular, why you believe that extra dollar should be going to promote beef here in the state of Montana? What would you tell that person?
Well, just look around at what everything else costs. If they, I'm not sure what the average herd or the average producer owns in the state of Montana, but even $200, $300, $400, and the current national, they've got that $1 jumped up to 11 is what they projected at, and
return on investment.
Yeah,
correct?
Return on investment. And so if you got 400 head and you're paying $400, put that to where, what else can you buy and get this kind of coverage and advertisement of the product? So to me, it's real simple, just real simple.
Well, and Lane, our checkoff as we know it now was enacted, I believe, in '85. The $1 is certainly a lot weaker now than it was in '85. Just look at what candy bars have done since '85 or anything else, pickups. So that's a part of this. So to me, there's two things that are really important to recognize. One is, another buck would just really go a long ways to do the things we need to do. The other is this has no ties to the national checkoff at all. It stays with the Montana Beef Council. They decide how it's spent. It's going to have broader sideboards than our national checkoff. So like I said, we can promote Montana beef. And to me, that's important, especially with all the small marketers we have throughout the state now, especially since COVID kind of changed the dynamics a little bit. There's a lot of Montana beef being marketed, and we can directly participate in helping promote that. So, and you can't with the national. And also, I think we can drive some research that we think that really needs to be done. That would be production research I'm talking about that could be really useful to Montana ranchers. So I think with a broader scope, this could be very powerful to enhance our profitability.
Now, there are several other states that have an additional state $1 checkoff. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Quite a few of them.
And what's the conversations you've had with those producers that participate or involved in beef promotion there, talking about just how much more opportunity they have at reaching reaching consumers, not just in their state, but worldwide?
Oh, most definitely. And, it's kind of back to some of the conversation, the problem with a lot of it, where the mass population in the United States is, them state beef councils are very limited because of the cattle numbers in that state. So, these bigger states like Montana, Texas, we've been sending money all up and down the East Coast where all the population is. And so it works. The checkoff works. And I'm proud to have been on it for 9 years and see it and to see what it can do overseas too. The USMEF is one of the contractors for the national, and to see the time that they put in. I believe the USMEF was started in 76 maybe, or 75, somewhere in there. and the relationship that they've developed and opened the trade up to these countries, all that takes a lot of time and effort. And it's neat to see how all that works. And like Jim talked with China, well, when that trade barrier comes down, look at the amount of product that has gone in there all of a sudden.
Very true. And I guess for folks that have stayed with us, listen to this, watch this, where can they learn more about the Montana Beef Enhancement Program? And who can they get in contact with to learn more about it? Maybe have some questions that I didn't get addressed here during this quick conversation. How can they reach out and learn more about the program to actually get to the nuts and bolts and everything that truly is in this little one-page beef enhancement program info guide, I guess we could call it?
Well, as of right now, we're still just working as a committee, but as this pushes forward, we're going to be out on the air more with folks like you, Lane, trying to get the word out, and we're hoping our committee grows and get more ag organizations to come on board with us and get this word around. And so you'll just have to stay tuned, but either contact myself or Jim, or or even Farm Bureau, stock growers. They'll point you the right way.
Lane, I don't know if you can or not, but if you can publish our emails, I'd certainly be open to that. I imagine at some point we'll have an official email for this working group, but at this point we do not yet.
Okay. No, we can definitely do that. And again, for the folks tuning in and listening to this conversation that have any questions, maybe some concerns, feel free to reach out to Jimmy Tabor or Jim Steinbeisser. And also we'll provide exactly what this program is as well. We'll make sure and share the copy of what the program is online on the Western Ag Network as well. But Jim, I know you're pulled over in somebody's farm field or something down there in the Midwest. I know you need to hit the road again, but any last thoughts that either of you would like to share, just how things are going on the operations here this fall and how things are looking as we wrap up 2022?
I've just in this meeting, this cattle trace meeting I just came from, the optimism is awfully high. There is everything indicates the real strong market coming. I know that's been the talk for a while, and we are seeing it strengthen. But the feeling is this could get really powerful. So I'm going to get more prepared, and I would encourage other guys to explore this too. Don't take my word for it, but I would explore where this thing's going, because I think we got a bright spot ahead of us in this cattle market.
Well, and Jim, like you said, just this week, USDA is projecting beef production next year to come in at 26.3 billion pounds. That's 2 billion less than last year. And the cattle and feedlots are expected to be about $1.55 and a half a hundredweight. That's 8% more than last year. That's just the projection out from USDA this week. So, yes, obviously we've all been impacted by drought. We've all reduced our herd sizes. We're trying to keep the best genetics out in the field that we can, the topper end of our herds. But when I was at Angus Convention a few weeks ago, that was the same sentiment. People are excited. And, I think we've seen some pretty strong bull sales even this fall, which I always think is an indicator of attitudes of especially cow-calf producers in the countryside. But I think this market is going to truly take off, barring a black swan event. And gosh darn, we're too familiar with those dang things sometimes popping up. But Jimmy, what are your thoughts here this fall?
Oh, I agree with Jim. I think it's, I'm hoping we got a couple of years of good markets ahead of us. The thing that worries me a little bit is this inflation issue. It's going to affect the people when they go to the grocery store to be looking at the meat case. So to me, that just shows that we got to be out there more pushing our product. And so they're comfortable buying that piece of meat instead of moving down to either pork or chicken. But, and then like always, the weather's going to dictate this, If the starts off raining next spring, decent winter and get some rain next spring, the herd could increase quite rapidly. But I still think I think the cow producer is going to be in the driver's seat for a little bit.
Well, unless you live in Sydney, Montana, where it looked like the Garden of Eden over there this year. Jim, was that the first time it rained in like 20 years this year?
It's 48 months. And it got dry later, but we had an awesome spring. So, so let's hope that our cycle's changing and all of us can share in some green grass next spring and summer.
Definitely.
Well, I always talk about when I flew back from Argentina on our Angus genetics trade mission down there at the end of May, and we flew into Billings, and there was just water going down those gullies everywhere. And then I jumped on the puddle jumper the next day to fly up to Sydney for the stock grower summer meeting there. And I'm like, I've never seen it green over here. And so I'm very happy for the producers like Jim and everyone in that neck of the woods that had a pretty early good spring and early summer, but just like all of us, we got droughty and grasshoppery pretty dang fast starting July 1st. That's my birthday, and so usually if things are good after July 1st, you can either blame me or thank me for bringing in that drought to the grasshoppers. But as I mentioned, we'll share more on the Montana Beef Enhancement Program because I know folks will have some questions. They'll want to learn more about it. And Jimmy, in general, a great resource for folks to learn about the checkoff is the Montana Beef Council and their website. Would you encourage folks where they should go to learn more about the checkoff itself?
Oh, most definitely. And, they can hit that website or call the office. But I encourage you to, if you belong to an organization, find out who sits on the board from your organization. And it might even be your local neighbor. Contact them, and they can easily navigate you through everything and show you the programs and all that kind of stuff. So
Layton, one other thing, you've never voted for a checkoff, have you?
I was not alive in the mid 1980s when the checkoff.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
I was a little young and when I voted for it. Jimmy, I don't know if you voted for it either.
I didn't vote for it. No, I wasn't. No, I was alive though. So
this is your opportunity to vote for a checkoff.
Well, I always like to remind Russell Nimitz that I was about 2 or 3 years old when he graduated high school. So just to put that into perspective for you guys. But I got enough gray in my beard and hair now that I feel that it's time that I partake in these historical events. How about that? Well, friends, again, thank you to Jimmy Tabor and Jim Steinbeisser for joining us here today and sharing more about what the Montana Beef Enhancement Program is. Again, that resolution passed at the Montana Farm Bureau and is going to be voted upon by the delegates at the Montana Stock Growers coming up that first, I think it's the first week of December. It's on my calendar. I'm going to be there, but that will be taking place as well. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the Montana Stock Growers Convention. Make sure and stop by and see Russell Nimitz and Haley Ship and myself there at our booth as well. Any last thoughts, friends, before I let you get back to your day?
No, I just thanks for your time, Lane. I hope producers jump on board with this, get some more information on it, and I truly believe this can do a lot for the industry.
And I too, Lane, would echo that, and also encourage everybody to come to the Stock Grower Convention. See what it's all about. If you've never been to one, see what it's all about. We have a lot of fun too.
That we do. It's a great event. And again, for more on the Montana Stock Growers Convention, make sure and visit mtbeef.org. With that, friends, thanks for staying with us for this special broadcast, learning more about what the Montana Beef Enhancement Program is. Signing off, I'm Lane Nordland for the Western Ag Network. Thanks for joining us here on the Lanecast Ag Podcast for our Ag Conversations.